For 20 years, my parents made me write apology letters for things my brother did. At my engagement dinner, my fiance finally asked to read one. The first letter I remember writing was when I was 7. My brother Tommy had pushed a kid off the playground slide. The kid broke his arm. My parents sat me at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pen and told me to apologize. To who? I asked. To everyone. My mom said, for upsetting your brother. I'm sorry. Tommy got angry. I'll try to be better. My dad read it, nodded and said, good. You're the calm one. You know how to fix things. That became my role. If Tommy screamed at a teacher, I wrote a letter. If he broke a neighbor's window, I wrote a letter. If he got suspended, I wrote a letter to the principal, explaining how we were working on our behavior. By middle school, I didn't even question it. The letters lived in a drawer in my bedroom. Sometimes my mom would hand me an envelope and say, you know what to do. I'd sit on my bed and apologize for things I hadn't done, smoothing over damage I hadn't caused. You're just better at words, my dad said. And Tommy is sensitive. He doesn't need more shame. If Tommy exploded, I must have provoked it. If he failed, I must not have supported him enough. By high school, the letters weren't occasional. They were expected. Teachers, coaches, parents of kids. Tommy scared when he got caught cheating. My mom made me write to the school board about misunderstandings. When he keyed a car after a breakup, I wrote to the girl's parents, explaining how emotional he was and how we were handling it at home. Once I asked why Tommy never had to apologize himself. My dad didn't even look up from the TV. Because you calm situations down, he said. You always have. Tommy leaned against the doorway, smirking. You're good at this. You should be a lawyer. I laughed because laughing kept things smooth, because pushing back only made my mom cry. And my dad shut down because every time Tommy exploded, I was handed a pen like a fire extinguisher. I moved out at 18, went to college, took the drawer of letters with me without knowing why. I never opened them, just shoved them in a box under my bed. But distance didn't end it. The calls still came. Tommy dropped out, moved back home, burned through jobs, got into arguments that couldn't be misunderstood. Every time something happened, my mom would call and say, we just need you to write something. This one's serious. The tone shifted. Urgent. Afraid. I always did it. By the time I met Noah, the letters had slowed. But they hadn't. He knew my family was complicated. He didn't know I was still cleaning up messes from 3 states away. I didn't know how to explain it, without sounding like I was exaggerating. The night of our engagement dinner my parents hosted, my mom smiled too hard, like she was bracing for impact. Tommy showed up late. Halfway through the meal, he snapped at the waiter for messing up his order. His voice rose. People stared. My mom reached under the table and squeezed my knee. A signal burned into muscle memory. Fix it later. As dessert was being cleared, she slipped an envelope into my purse. No explanation, no eye contact. I didn't even look at it. My body moved before my brain caught up. In the car on the way home, Noah asked, what was that? Nothing, I said. Too fast. He waited until we were inside. Then he gently took the envelope from my bag. I sighed. It's just a letter. For what? He asked. For Tommy. He got heated. I replied. Noah frowned. So he writes an apology? I shook my head. I do. The silence stretched. Why? He asked. I didn't have an answer that made sense out loud. He opened the envelope anyway. Inside was a blank sheet of paper and my mom's handwriting. At the top it read, explain the situation calmly. Don't embarrass him. Noah looked at me differently then. Not angry, alarmed. How long has this been happening? Since I was a kid. How many letters are there? He asked. I hesitated. A lot. Can I see one? He asked. I pulled the box out from under the bed and set it between us. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Noah picked one at random and started reading. His jaw tightened. You were 12 when you wrote this, he said. I nodded. You're apologizing for him threatening a teacher. Another letter. Then another. Years of my handwriting. Apologizing. Explaining, minimizing. Taking responsibility for damage that wasn't mine. These aren't apologies, Noah said quietly. They're cover stories. They trained you to clean up his messes. He continued. They didn't protect him. They used you. The next morning, the sun felt intrusive. It glared through the blinds of our apartment, illuminating the cardboard box that sat open on the coffee table, like an exposed wound. Noah hadn't slept. I knew this because the coffee pot was already empty, and he was sitting on the balcony, staring at the city skyline. When I walked out, he didn't ask how I was. He asked the question that would dismantle my entire life. What happens if you say no? I wrapped my cardigan tighter around myself. They get upset. My mom cries. My dad stops speaking to me. Tommy breaks things. No, Noah said, turning to face me. His eyes were red-rimmed but terrifyingly clear. I mean, what happens to Tommy if you say no? I blinked. I had never considered that. He faces the consequences, I guess. Exactly, Noah said. For 20 years, you haven't been apologizing. You've been obstructing justice. You've been the dam holding back the flood. And honey, the water is getting really high. He walked back inside, picked up the blank sheet of paper my mother had slipped me the night before, and handed me a lighter from the kitchen drawer. Burn it. I can't, I whispered. The conditioning was deep. It was in my marrow. Mom said he snapped at the waiter. If I don't smooth it over, he might go back to that restaurant and cause a scene or… Let him, Noah said. Burn. My hand shook. I struck the flint. The flame caught the corner of the heavy cream stationery. My mother always bought the expensive kind, as if quality paper made the lies more palatable. I watched the words explain the situation calmly curl into ash. It was the terrifying first step. But I had no idea that I wasn't just burning a letter. I was lighting a fuse. The silence from my parents lasted 3 days. They were waiting. They assumed I was drafting a masterpiece, something that would make the waiter not only forgive Tommy, but perhaps apologize to him. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Elena. My mother's voice was tight. Did you send it? The manager at the bistro called. He said Tommy is banned. Banned. Elena. It's embarrassing. I didn't write it, Mom, I said, gripping the edge of the granite counter until my knuckles turned white. Noah was standing behind me, his hands on my shoulders, grounding me. There was a pause so long I thought the line had gone dead. What do you mean? I mean, I'm done. I'm not writing letters for a 30-year-old man anymore. If Tommy is banned, he's banned. You're being selfish, she snapped, the sweetness evaporating instantly. You know how fragile he is right now. He's going through a transition. He's been transitioning for a decade, I said. I'm hanging up. If you hang up, she threatened, her voice dropping to a whisper, don't expect us to pay for the wedding venue. It was a bluff. Or maybe it wasn't. But looking at Noah, at the box of letters that chronicled a lifetime of my servitude, I realized the price of their money was my soul. Keep the money, I said. And I hung up. The retaliation was swift and chaotic. Tommy didn't call me. He didn't text. He acted out. It was his language. 2 weeks later, I was at work. I was a copywriter, ironically, making a living off the very skill my parents had exploited, when the reception called. Elena? There's a police officer here to see you. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I went to the lobby. A uniformed officer stood there, looking bored. Are you Elena Vance? Yes. We have you listed as the primary character reference for a Thomas Vance. He's been detained for property damage and assault at a place called the Rusty Anchor? I closed my eyes. The Rusty Anchor was a dive bar 3 towns over. I'm his sister, I said. But I'm not his lawyer. He's asking you to come down. He says you can explain everything. That it was a misunderstanding. The old reflex kicked in. The urge to rush to the car, to grab a notepad, to draft a narrative about how Tommy had been under stress, how the bartender had provoked him, how he was actually a gentle soul who just needed patience. I looked at the officer. I can't explain it, I said. Because I wasn't there. And I'm not coming down. The officer raised an eyebrow. He said you'd say that. He also said to tell you. Remember the golden retriever? The air left my lungs. I stumbled back against the reception desk. Are you okay, miss? I need a moment. Remember the golden retriever? I was 10. We had a dog, Buster. One day, Buster snapped at Tommy. Tommy kicked him. Hard. Buster bit him back. My parents put the dog down the next day. They told the vet the dog was aggressive. They made me write a letter to the neighborhood association saying we were removing a dangerous animal to protect the local children. I had written the death warrant for my own dog to cover up my brother's cruelty. That was the leverage. He wasn't just reminding me of a memory. He was reminding me that we were co-conspirators. I had spent 20 years documenting his innocence. If I stopped now, I was admitting that I had been lying to police, principals, and victims for 2 decades. I went home and told Noah everything. He's blackmailing you, Noah said, pacing the living room. With your own compliance. I helped him, Noah. I helped him get away with everything. If he goes down, he's going to drag me with him. No, Noah said firmly. He's drowning. You're just letting go of the rope. The wedding was 2 months away. We downsized. We canceled the fancy venue my parents were holding over our heads and booked a small garden spot. We didn't invite them. But you can't ghost a family like mine. They haunt you. A week before the wedding, my father showed up at my apartment. He didn't look like the tyrant of my childhood. He looked old. Defeated. Can I come in? I let him in. I didn't offer him coffee. He sat on the sofa, hat in his hands. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. Tommy is. He's facing charges, Elena. Real ones this time. Aggravated assault. I know, I said. He could go to prison. Maybe he should. My father looked up, his eyes flashing with that familiar disappointment. He's your brother. He's blood. We protected you too, you know. We gave you a nice life. You gave me a job, I corrected. You gave me a role. The cleaner. The fixer. You were good at it, he shouted, then caught himself. He took a breath. Look, the lawyer says if we can show a history of mental health struggles, we can get him into a facility instead of jail. We need the letters. I froze. What? The copies? The drafts? We know you kept them. You were always sentimental. We need them to show a pattern of emotional disturbance, to show that we were trying to handle it internally. They wanted to weaponize my forced apologies. They wanted to use the evidence of their enabling to prove his incompetence. It was twisted, and yet brilliant. I don't have them, I lied. Don't lie to me, he growled. You have that box. Give it to me, and we'll leave you alone. We won't come to the wedding. We'll vanish. Just save your brother one last time. It was a tempting offer. Freedom. Total, absolute freedom, in exchange for a box of paper. I looked at the bedroom door. The box was under the bed. Get out, I said. Elena. Get out. I screamed, a sound I didn't know I could make. Get out before I call the police and show them the letters myself. My father stood up. He looked at me with pure loathing. You're cold, he spat. You're colder than he ever was. He slammed the door. The night before the wedding, the final shoe dropped. Noah was staying at a hotel, adhering to tradition. I was alone in the apartment, packing a bag for the honeymoon. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I'm outside. Then another. I have a lighter too. I ran to the window. Down on the street, standing under the halo of a street lamp, was Tommy. He looked disheveled, manic. He was holding a red gas can. My car. He was standing next to my car. I called 911. My voice was steady. My brother is outside my apartment. He has gasoline. He's threatening arson. Yes, he has a history of violence. I hung up and watched. Tommy poured the gasoline over the hood of my Toyota. He looked up at my window, knowing I was watching. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to run down there with a notepad and beg. He wanted me to write a letter to the insurance company explaining that it was an electrical fire. I didn't move. He lit the match. The whoosh of the flames was audible even from the third floor. The fire danced up the windshield. It was violent and beautiful. Sirens wailed in the distance. Tommy didn't run. He stood there, watching the fire, waiting for me to come save him. He waited for his big sister to come down and talk to the police, to explain that he was just confused. When the police cruiser screeched to a halt, officers swarmed him. I saw them tackle him to the pavement. I saw the handcuffs. I saw him looking up at my window, screaming something I couldn't hear, but I could read his lips. Fix this. I closed the blinds. The police needed a statement. This time, I went down to the station. Noah met me there. He held my hand as I sat in the interrogation room across from a detective. He burned your car, the detective said. We have it on CCTV, but he's claiming it was your idea. Insurance fraud. He says you told him to do it. I laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. Of course he did. He says you have a history of covering things up. That you're the mastermind. I reached into my tote bag. I pulled out the box. The cardboard was frayed at the edges. Detective, I said. This is a record of every crime, misdemeanor, and mistake my brother has committed since 1998. It contains the contact information of victims, the dates of incidents, and the lies my parents forced me to construct to cover them up. The detective stared at the box. I'm not a mastermind, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I'm a witness, and I'm turning state's evidence. I opened the box. Here is a letter to Principal Skinner, dated 2004, regarding the theft of exam papers. Here is a letter to the Hendersons, dated 2009, regarding the poisoning of their cat. Here is a letter to the University Board, dated 2012, regarding the sexual harassment allegations. I laid them out, one by one. The timeline of a monster, written in the neat cursive of a girl who just wanted her parents to love her. I wrote these, I said, under duress. But I won't write another one. The wedding was small. It was perfect. There was a moment, during the vows, where I faltered. I heard a siren outside and my body tensed. I waited for the tap on the shoulder, the envelope being slipped into my hand. Noah squeezed my fingers. You're here, he whispered. You're safe. I took a breath. Ido. The trial took place 6 months later. It was a sensation in the local papers. The apology letters case. My parents were indicted for obstruction of justice and conspiracy. Tommy was facing multiple counts of arson, assault, and fraud, reopening cases going back years thanks to the box of evidence. I had to testify. Seeing them in the courtroom was surreal. They sat at the defense table, a broken triumvirate. My mother looked frail, weeping into a handkerchief. My father refused to look at me. Tommy stared at me with dead, shark-like eyes. The defense attorney tried to paint me as a willing participant, a manipulator who enjoyed the control. You wrote the words, didn't you, Mrs. Vance? I had taken Noah's name. I wanted nothing left of theirs. I held the pen, I said into the microphone. But they held the gun. There was no gun, the lawyer scoffed. There was, I said. The gun was the threat that I would be unloved, that I would be the cause of the family's destruction. When you are a child, that is a gun to your head. The jury didn't deliberate long. Tommy got 15 years. The arson charge stuck, but the past crimes, the ones I had documented, painted a picture of a sociopath that the judge couldn't ignore. My parents got probation and heavy fines, their reputation destroyed, their social standing incinerated by the very daughter they trained to protect it. 1 year later, I sat on the balcony of our new house. We had moved states. No forwarding address. I had a new yellow legal pad in front of me. A nice pen. Writing a novel? Noah asked, bringing out 2 iced teas. No, I said. One last letter. He sat down concerned. To who? To me. I uncapped the pen. The ink flowed smoothly. Dear Elena. I am sorry. I am sorry I let them use your voice. I am sorry I let you believe that love was a transaction. I am sorry for the nights you spent crying over guilt that wasn't yours. But I also forgive you. You survived the only way you knew how. You learned to use words as a shield. Now you can use them as a sword. Or a bridge. Or a song. You are not a fixer. You are not a buffer. You are the author of the rest of your life. Sincerely, you. I folded the paper. I didn't burn it. I put it in a frame and hung it in the hallway. The phone rang. The caller ID showed a number from the state penitentiary. I looked at it. I watched it ring. In the past, I would have answered. I would have listened to the pleas, the demands, the guilt. I would have grabbed a pen. I let it ring until it stopped. Then I picked up the legal pad, turned to a fresh page, and started to write something new. Not an apology. A grocery list. Bread. Milk. Champagne. I smiled. The page was blank, and for the first time in my life, I didn't owe anyone a single word.